Pastore. I first joined Toastmasters in 1976. The year of our bicentennial. Received his DTM designation in 1981, with former area governor twice. Arizona real estate broker since 1977. Enjoys fitness, running, reading, hiking, and dancing, not necessarily in that order, I assume. He's going to give a 5 to 7 minute speech titled, My Mom's Mantra. My Mom's Mantra, Paul Pastore.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. How many ladies in the room celebrated Mother's Day a few weeks ago? That Sunday morning, as the sun slowly slipped over the superstitions in the east, Lisa and I were hiking Payastoa Peak, or Squaw Peak. And as we were coming down, Lisa said to me, "You seem sort of quiet. Is something bothering you?" And I said, "Not really. I was just thinking about my mom." You see, she passed away about 5 years ago, and Mother's Day is a little different when you don't have your mom. She passed away of breast cancer, and about 10 years prior to that, they diagnosed her with breast cancer. They did a double mastectomy. She had radiation and chemotherapy, and they called that insidious illness. And she had a wonderful 10-year span, but then it came back and it took her life. And I was thinking that morning about the lessons that I learned from my mom, so I thought I'd share them with you today. The first lesson I learned from my mom was about religion. I can remember her saying to me, "You better pray that stain comes out of the car." Even as a small boy, my mom taught me about world events. I can hear her saying, "You know, there are millions of children in the world that don't have parents as wonderful as you." She taught me about my roots. She used to say, "Why don't you close the door? Do you think you were born in a barn?" Tim, she taught me about irony. She said, "You keep crying, and I'll give you something to cry about." I remember her teaching me about science, and wouldn't you, my fellow Toastmasters, say science is important to learn? When I was at the dinner table, she taught me about osmosis. She said, "Why don't you shut your mouth and eat your food?" She taught me about hypocrisy as a boy. She used to say, "If I told you once, I told you a million times, don't exaggerate." Sunil, she taught me about the circle of life. And wouldn't you say the circle of life is important?
It is.
She used to look at me and say, "I brought you into this world, and I can take it well." She was never in Boy Scouts, but she taught me about the importance of being prepared. She would say to me, "If you're gonna leave the house, wear clean underwear in case you get in an accident." She taught me, even as a boy, about genetics. I can remember her saying, "Lena, Mamma Mia, you're just like your father." And the last lesson she taught me was about justice. And my fellow Toastmasters, wouldn't you say learning about justice is important?
Very important.
Very important. She used to say, "I hope someday you have kids just like you." Now you might be thinking, well, if you were a mom, what lessons would you want your children to learn? So I'd like to share them with you. And they begin with an acronym, RALI, R-A-L-I. I would want my kids, if I was a mom, to reject passivity. I would want my kids to learn to accept responsibility. I would want my children to learn to lead courageously. And most importantly, I would want my kids to learn to invest in the eternal. Let me give you an example. I have a friend. He lives in the East Valley. He has a son who lives with his mother about a half a mile from here. His son, when he was 18, because he's 19 now, decided to drop out of high school. His son stays at home all day while his parents are working. His son, the boy, doesn't have a job. All day long, he gets to sleep, play video games, and watch TV. He has a habit of smoking marijuana, but he can't have marijuana in the house. If my mom was here today, she would go crazy. What I'm seeing today is some people, some parents, some women have gone from motherhood to what I call smotherhood. They have become permissive parents. They are treating 30 and 20-year-old men as 10-year-old boys. And if my mom was here today, she would go crazy. Because my mom thought your goal was to be a self-reliant member of society. And if you weren't a student and you weren't working, you are out of here. My mom, Jim, would say something like, Paulie, I'll always love you, but I'm gonna miss you.
Oh, man.
So my fellow Toastmasters, if you are a woman in this room that celebrated Mother's Day, congratulations, because in my opinion, it's one of the noblest callings on this planet. And my fellow Toastmasters, I want to once again share with you Muriel Pastori's mantra. I hope someday your kids grow up to be just like you, Toastmasters.